They found the first sample on a dead man's desk. A single drop. Perfectly spherical. Suspended half a centimeter above the surface of the wood, rotating slowly, like it was deciding which way to go. I need to tell you about Project Drop. Not because you should know, because someone needs to document what happened before the last person who remembers it dies. Or disappears, or stops being able to tell the difference. The official record is 3 pages long, dated May 1981, signed by people whose signatures don't match their personnel files. Project Drop, Chemical Warfare Research Division, initiated March 1981 at Laboratory Complex Sever 12, Arkhangelsk Oblast. Objective: development of non-Newtonian fluid compounds for strategic dispersal applications. Result: inconclusive due to equipment malfunction. Program terminated June 1981. All samples destroyed per protocol. Except the samples weren't destroyed, and the equipment didn't malfunction, and the program didn't terminate in June. It terminated in August, after 43 people stopped coming to work, after the laboratory was sealed with 6 researchers still inside, after Moscow sent a cleanup team that refused to file a report. Let me show you what actually happened. March 12, 1981. Laboratory Complex. Sever 12 received a shipment from a mining operation in the Ural Mountains. 16 containers, each holding approximately 1 liter of liquid extracted from a geological formation at a depth of 2,400 meters. The liquid was black, viscous, and according to preliminary analysis, it shouldn't exist. The lead chemist, Dr. Grigory Marchenko, filed his initial report 3 days after the shipment arrived.
The substance exhibits properties inconsistent with known chemical compounds. Density varies without temperature change. Viscosity appears to respond to observation. Most anomalous. When placed in a sealed container and left undisturbed, the liquid rises. Not due to pressure, differential, or capillary action. It simply climbs the walls of its container, as if gravity were a suggestion rather than a law.
The attached photographs, I have them here. In the first image, the liquid sits at the bottom of a glass beaker. Standard. Unremarkable. The second image, taken 6 hours later, shows the liquid 3 centimeters higher, coating the interior walls, defying every principle of physics that should govern its behavior. The third image shows the liquid at the rim of the beaker, poised, as if it were about to spill over. The fourth image shows an empty beaker. The liquid is gone. But on the laboratory table, 5 centimeters from the beaker, there's a puddle, perfectly circular. The logical explanation would be that someone moved the liquid, except the laboratory was sealed overnight. Motion sensors detected no movement. The cameras recorded nothing. The liquid had traveled on its own. Dr. Marchenko's notes from this period become increasingly agitated. We've conducted 17 tests. The substance moves when unobserved. Place it in a container, monitor it with cameras, and it remains static. Look away, turn off the cameras, and it relocates. This violates fundamental principles. Matter does not exhibit intentionality. Matter does not choose when to move based on whether it's being watched. But that's exactly what it did. By April, they'd established a basic pattern. The liquid moved upward when possible. Always upward. against gravity, against pressure, against every force that should constrain it. Place a droplet on the floor and leave the room. Return an hour later and find it on the ceiling. Place it in a sealed jar with a metal lid. Return the next day and find the jar empty, the liquid pooled on top of the lid, somehow having passed through solid matter to reach a higher position. One of the junior researchers, a woman named Katya Sokolova, proposed a test. She wanted to see how high the liquid would climb if given a vertical surface and unlimited time. They prepared a test chamber, 10 meters tall, smooth walls. A single droplet of the substance was placed at the bottom. Cameras were positioned but kept offline. The chamber was sealed. They waited the 24 hours. When they opened the chamber, the droplet was at the top. But that's not what disturbed them. What disturbed them was the trail. The liquid had left a residue as it climbed, not random, not chaotic. The residue formed patterns, shapes that looked almost like writing, characters that resembled Cyrillic but weren't quite right, letters that bent at wrong angles, that seemed to shift when you looked at them directly. Katya photographed the patterns. She spent 3 days trying to decipher them. On the 4th day, she stopped coming to the laboratory. When her supervisor called her apartment, she answered the phone but didn't speak, just breathing. After a minute, she said something. One sentence.
It's not writing, it's directions.
She hung up. They found her apartment empty the next morning. No signs of struggle, no indication she'd packed, just gone. On her desk, written in black ink that hadn't been there the day before, was the same pattern from the test chamber. And underneath it in her handwriting, follow upward. The laboratory director, Volkov, ordered all climbing tests suspended. But Dr. Marchenko argued for continuation. He wanted to understand the mechanism. How does a liquid move against gravity? What property allows it to pass through solid barriers? Where does it go when it disappears from sealed containers? Volkov approved one final test. They would observe the liquid continuously. No breaks, no gaps in surveillance. They would watch it every moment and see if it moved under direct observation. They prepared the chamber. Cameras from 6 angles. 3 researchers monitoring in shifts. The droplet was placed on the chamber floor at 1400 hours on April 28th. For the first 12 hours, nothing happened. The liquid remained static, perfectly still. The researchers noted this as confirmation. The substance only moves when unobserved. But at 2:17 during the night shift, something changed. The researcher on duty, a man named Petrov, noted it in his log.
The droplet is moving, not climbing, expanding, growing larger. But we haven't added any additional substance. The volume is increasing spontaneously.
At 2:31, the droplet had doubled in size. At 2:45, it had quadrupled. At 3 o'clock, it covered the entire floor of the test chamber. A black pool, perfectly level, like a mirror reflecting nothing. Petrov called for Dr. Marchenko. By the time Marchenko arrived, the liquid had begun to rise, not climbing the walls, rising uniformly, as if the entire pool were being lifted by an invisible force. At 3:22, the liquid reached 1 meter in height, still perfectly level, still mirror smooth. At 3:30, it reached 2 meters. Dr. Marchenko ordered the chamber sealed and the building evacuated. Standard contamination protocol. But before the evacuation order could be executed, the liquid stopped rising. It held at exactly 2 meters, for 17 minutes, perfectly still. Then it spoke. Not with sound, not with vibration. The researchers described it as words appearing directly in their minds, not their own thoughts, something else's thoughts being broadcast into their consciousness. Where is up? 3 words. Simple. Childlike. But the implications were profound. The liquid was asking a question. It possessed some form of awareness, some form of curiosity. Dr. Marchenko, against all protocol, against all rational judgment, responded. He spoke aloud to the liquid.
Up is away from Earth, away from gravity, toward the sky, toward space.
The liquid remained still for 32 seconds. Then it contracted, rapidly. The 2-meter pool collapsed back into a single droplet in less than 5 seconds. The droplet rolled to the center of the chamber floor and stopped. Then it launched itself upward, straight up, impossibly fast. It struck the ceiling of the test chamber with enough force to crack the concrete, and it stayed there, pressed against the ceiling, spreading slowly, seeking higher ground that didn't exist. Dr. Marchenko's report from that night is fragmentary.
The substance exhibits goal-oriented behavior. It wants to ascend. This is not chemical reaction or physical property. This is purpose. The liquid is trying to go somewhere, and it's learning how.
May brought escalation. They'd contained the original sample in a reinforced chamber with a ceiling rated to withstand artillery strikes. The liquid couldn't penetrate it, but it tried, constantly. The cameras showed it flowing across the ceiling in patterns that suggested problem-solving, testing different areas, applying pressure to weak points, learning the structure of its prison. And then they made a mistake. A technician named Volkov brought his lunch into the observation room, a thermos of tea. He set it on the console while reviewing footage. He didn't notice when a drop of condensation formed on the outside of the thermos. Didn't notice when that drop fell to the console surface. Didn't notice when the drop started moving upward on its own. It wasn't condensation. Somehow, a microscopic amount of the substance had contaminated the observation room. Less than a milliliter. But that was enough. The drop climbed the wall, reached the ceiling, then continued along the ceiling toward the ventilation duct. The technician only noticed when the drop reached the vent and began to squeeze through the mesh screen. He hit the alarm immediately. But it was already gone, into the ventilation system, into the ductwork that connected to every room in the facility. They initiated lockdown, sealed all vents, shut down air circulation, but the damage was done. Over the next 48 hours, researchers across the facility reported finding droplets in impossible locations. On top of ceiling-mounted light fixtures, inside sealed cabinets, on the upper shelves of storage rooms, always climbing, always seeking higher ground. And the droplets were multiplying, not through division, through conversion. Any liquid that came in contact with the substance took on its properties. Water became climbing water. Coffee became climbing coffee. One researcher spilled a glass of vodka in his office. By morning, the vodka had climbed to the ceiling and spread across it like a stain. When they tried to clean it, it absorbed the cleaning solution and grew larger. Dr. Marchenko realized the implications immediately. We're facing a cascading contamination event. Every liquid in this facility is potentially convertible, and once converted, it seeks altitude. If this substance reaches the water table, if it contaminates groundwater or surface water, it could spread across the entire region. Lakes climbing out of their basins, rivers flowing upward, rain falling up instead of down. May 15th, they attempted to destroy the samples through incineration. High-temperature burn in a sealed chamber. The liquid was heated to 800 degrees Celsius. It evaporated, became vapor, and the vapor rose, faster than normal steam. It reached the ceiling of the incineration chamber and condensed, reformed as liquid, and continued climbing. They tried freezing it, cooled it to minus 40 degrees Celsius. It solidified into a black ice that continued to exude upward pressure. The ice cracked the container from the inside, always pushing toward higher positions. They tried chemical neutralization, acids, bases, solvents. Nothing worked. The substance absorbed everything, converted it, made it part of itself. By May 20th, 70% of the facility was contaminated. Droplets on every ceiling, puddles forming in attics and roof spaces. The building itself was becoming saturated with liquid that defied natural law. The researchers began experiencing psychological effects: vertigo, disorientation, a persistent sensation that down was the wrong direction. Several reported dreams of falling upward, of the sky opening beneath them like a throat. One researcher, a physicist named Andrei Kuznetsov, wrote a disturbing memo.
I believe the substance is not defying gravity. I believe it's responding to a different gravitational source. Something above us. Something pulling it upward with more force than Earth pulls it downward. We're not seeing a chemical anomaly. We're seeing an artifact of a physical law we don't understand.
On May 23rd, Kuznetsov was found in his office, dead. He'd climbed onto his desk, stood on his chair, and somehow wedged himself into the corner where the walls met the ceiling. The position was impossible. His body was compressed into a space too small to fit a human frame, as if he'd been drawn upward with tremendous force, and the architecture of the room had simply caught him on the way to wherever he was going. The autopsy revealed his lungs were full of the black liquid, not inhaled, not ingested. It had formed inside him, condensing from his own bodily fluids. His blood, his cerebrospinal fluid, everything wet inside him had converted to the climbing substance, and it had tried to take him up with it. After Kuznetsov's death, the remaining researchers divided into two factions. One group, led by Dr. Marchenko, believed the substance could be controlled. That understanding its properties could lead to revolutionary applications in materials science and physics. The other group, led by the facility security chief Baranov, believed the substance was an existential threat, that it should be buried under concrete and forgotten. The debate became moot on May 29th. That's when the rain started. Not normal rain. This rain fell from inside the building, droplets forming on the ceilings throughout the facility and falling upward. Up into the ventilation ducts, up into the crawl spaces, up toward the roof. The entire building was weeping upward, and the rain was black. The staff evacuation began immediately. 43 people worked at Sever 12. 37 made it out. 6 remained inside, either by choice or by circumstance. Dr. Marchenko was one of the 6. His final radio transmission came at 16:47 hours.
Baranov, if you're listening, do not send anyone back inside. The building is compromised. The substance has reached critical saturation. It's in the walls, in the foundation. The entire structure is trying to rise. I can feel it. The floor is vibrating. Everything is pulling upward. And I think I understand now. I think I know where it wants to go.
Where, Doctor?
Home. It's trying to go home. Back to wherever it came from. Back to whatever place pulls harder than Earth.
The transmission cut off at 16:51. The building stood for another 6 hours. Then, at 23:03, witnesses in the nearby village of Olenitsa reported seeing Laboratory Complex Saver 12 lift off the ground. Not explode, not collapse, lift. The entire structure, 4 stories of reinforced concrete and steel, rose approximately 3 meters into the air and hung there, suspended, defying physics, defying reality. It remained airborne for 47 seconds. Then it fell, not gently, it dropped like a stone. The impact was measured at 4.2 on the Richter scale. The building shattered completely, reduced to rubble. The cleanup team arrived the next morning. They found the wreckage spread across the site. But they found something else, something impossible. The debris was organized, not randomly scattered as it should be after such catastrophic structural failure. It was arranged in layers. The heaviest pieces at the bottom, the lightest at the top, as if something had sorted the wreckage by weight, preparing it for another attempt at flight. And in the center of the debris field, they found 6 bodies. The researchers who'd remained inside, they were intact, uninjured. No trauma from the fall, just dead. And all 6 of them were facing upward. Eyes open, mouths open, as if they'd been screaming at the sky. The autopsies were performed at a military hospital in Arkhangelsk. The pathologist's report is classified, but a summary leaked to this archive.
Cause of death: unknown. All subjects exhibit identical pathology. Internal organs show signs of vertical displacement. Lungs pressed against upper rib cage. Heart elevated within chest cavity. Brain shifted upward within skull.
As if subjects experienced sustained upward acceleration immediately prior to death. Most disturbing, all subjects' bodily fluids are contaminated with an unidentified black substance. This substance continues to exhibit anomalous properties post-mortem. During examination, fluid samples climbed out of collection vials and spread across laboratory ceilings. The bodies were cremated. The ashes were sealed in lead containers and buried at undisclosed locations, separately, each in a different region of the Soviet Union, because someone was concerned about what might happen if the ashes were kept together. June 1981, the official shutdown of Project Drop. The site was sterilized with chemical fire. Every building destroyed, every piece of equipment incinerated. The ground was excavated to a depth of 5 meters, and the contaminated soil was removed, but they couldn't remove all of it. Over the following years, there were reports. Villagers in Olenitsa described finding puddles on rooftops after rainstorms. Puddles that shouldn't be there. Puddles that climbed higher if left undisturbed. In 1985, a geological survey team working in the area reported equipment malfunction. Their water supplies kept disappearing overnight. They'd fill canteens and leave them in the tent. By morning, the canteens would be empty, and there would be damp spots on the tent ceiling. In 1992, after the Soviet Union collapsed, a group of scavengers searching the ruins of Sever 12 found something in the debris. A sealed container. Heavy. When they opened it, they found it filled with black liquid. 3 of the 5 scavengers were never seen again. The other 2 were found wandering in the forest 3 weeks later. Both were hospitalized with severe dehydration. Their bodies had somehow lost all internal fluids, but the fluids hadn't leaked out. They'd evaporated. And according to the medical staff, the vapor hadn't dispersed. It had risen, collected on the ceiling of the hospital room, condensed there, waiting. The hospital was evacuated and sealed. It remains sealed. As of last year, the area around the former laboratory complex Sever 12 is still restricted. Official reason: unexploded ordnance from Cold War testing. Real reason: ongoing anomalous activity. Satellite imagery shows something strange. In spring, when the snow melts, the meltwater doesn't flow downhill as it should. It flows uphill, away from the site, as if the land itself is trying to push the water away from something buried beneath it. And during heavy rains, locals report seeing water spouts, but not the kind that form over water. These form over land. Columns of rotating water climbing from the ground toward the clouds, like the earth is trying to drain itself into the sky. I found one more document. Not in the official archive. This was in Dr. Marchenko's personal effects, recovered from his apartment after the incident. A handwritten letter, never sent, addressed to his sister.
Irina, if you receive this, it means I didn't make it out. I need you to understand something. We didn't create the substance. We didn't alter it. We just found it. It was already there, deep in the earth, waiting. And I think it's been waiting a very long time. Waiting for something to change. Waiting for the right conditions. Maybe waiting for us. The substance doesn't just climb. It seeks. It has direction, purpose. And I don't think its purpose is compatible with ours. We orient ourselves toward the earth. We build down. We dig deep. We're creatures of gravity and weight. But the substance orients upward. It wants to leave, to rise, to return to wherever it came from. And Irina? I think it came from very far away. From somewhere where up and down mean different things. From somewhere where falling and rising are reversed. I think we found a piece of another world. A world where gravity pulls the other way. And that piece wants to go home. Even if it has to take everything around it along for the journey.
The letter was dated May 28th, one day before the building tried to fly. There's something else I need to tell you. Something that's been happening since I started working with these documents. I keep my archive in a basement. Standard practice, climate-controlled, secure, protected from light and humidity. But twice now I've found documents out of place. Not misfiled, relocated. Moved from lower shelves to higher shelves. Files I know I stored at ground level appearing on the top shelves 3 meters up. I thought it was my mistake, fatigue, stress. Then, this morning, I found something on the ceiling of the archive room. A stain, circular, black. Like a liquid had pooled there and evaporated. But I don't keep liquids in the archive. Nothing that could leak, nothing that could climb. I touched the stain. It was damp, fresh. And when I pulled my hand away, my fingers were wet with something black and viscous. I've sealed the archive. I'm writing this report in my office upstairs. I won't go back down there, not until I understand what's happening. But I'm starting to suspect I already understand. The substance from Project Drop was never fully destroyed. Pieces of it survived, scattered, buried, sealed. But still active, still climbing, still seeking. And somehow, through the documents, through the photographs, through the simple act of studying what happened, I've brought it here. There's a glass of water on my desk. I've been watching it for the past hour. The water level is dropping, not through evaporation, through migration. The water is climbing the inside of the glass, slowly, inexorably. It's almost at the rim now. I should move it, dispose of it, seal it. But I want to see what happens when it reaches the top. I want to see where it goes next. The substance wants to climb. It's been climbing for millions of years, maybe, trapped in the deep earth, pressing upward against kilometers of rock, trying to reach the surface. Trying to reach the sky, trying to return to whatever distant place it fell from. And we found it. We brought it up. We gave it what it wanted. Now it won't stop. It's on my ceiling now, the water from the glass. A dark wet patch spreading slowly across the white plaster. And I swear I can see patterns in it. The same patterns Katja photographed. The ones that looked like directions. Follow upward. I understand now. The substance isn't trying to escape gravity. It's trying to show us the way. There's something above us. Something the substance came from. Something that pulls harder than Earth. And it's been there all along. Waiting. Just like the substance was waiting. The water is dripping now, but not down. Up. Droplets forming on my ceiling and rising. Falling upward into the space above. Into the attic. Into the sky beyond. And I can feel it. A pull. A gentle tug. Like the beginning of a fall in the wrong direction. The substance wants to go home. And maybe, just maybe, it wants to take us with it. And I think it wants to take me with it.